thought I was not going to make it to 30. I grew up 360 pounds and I went on this weight loss journey. Just absolutely insane.
Brendan Carpenter is a digital creator inspiring millions by sharing his weight loss journey through running.
How much weight did you lose?
I lost 160 pounds at the grand total of things. When I hit a plateau for 2 years after losing 100 pounds, I started to get really obsessed with it, my weight, and like trying to become a smaller. I eventually burnt myself out. Because of running, I actually gained 60 pounds. I was not happy.
You have over 250,000 followers on TikTok. People are resonating with this journey of yours. What's something you know today that you didn't know when you first started on this journey? But I have to say this on the record. You are a traitor to Toronto Maple Leaf fans because you were spotted in an Edmonton Oilers jersey. And unlike many people across the country, I am happy that the Oilers lost. That's the Leafs fan in me, and I know I'm going to probably get shit for that, but that's okay. I
can't even claim that I wasn't in that jersey because we made it right on to Sportsnet, the opening. So
that was a pretty wild experience.
It was very wild. Yeah. Something that came together so quickly too. Like we didn't know that if we were going until game 4 it was.
Well, yeah, because they were down 3-0.
Yeah, so 11 o'clock we're packing. We had to be up at 5 for the flight, and next thing you know, we were down at the Stanley Cup Finals.
Wow. What's that experience like?
Truly amazing. And as a Leafs fan, and never being able to experience that, and who knows if we ever will. It was remarkable. I've never heard a building that loud.
Yeah.
And it was just, we left there soaked in beers, but that's okay. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. So I was just happy that with the people that I went with and meeting them. They were all from Edmonton, and it was just remarkable to see them just get their hopes up for a little bit like we did in the first round and then lose in game 7. But it hopefully we'll get there one day.
Oh, I'm pretty confident it'll be this year. Like I said, every other year.
Yeah, this is the year.
Have you been to Edmonton before?
Never been.
Okay.
Calgary, though.
Right. Okay. I'm going to Calgary in August. I've never been to Calgary, but I've been to Edmonton. I did the Juno Awards while they were there.
Oh, no.
We actually filmed an episode of the podcast in Edmonton for the Junos, where we did sort of like a red carpet segment. It was really cool.
Oh, that is.
But there wasn't much else going on in Edmonton, that I will say.
Nice
people.
Yeah. They actually said that. They said there's not much going on here other than hockey. So
Yeah. Brendan, welcome to Gents Talk.
Thank you for having me.
You and I have crossed paths a few times in the last little while at a number of events, and you have a particularly interesting story. You're a runner, but there's more to you than just running. There's a reason you run so often.
Yeah.
Let's start there. Who's Brendan?
That's a good question. Brendan, he's a ever-evolving type of guy. I'm not really too sure. I'm really just trying to find myself again after I thought I had figured myself out. Like I grew up 360 pounds. I thought I was not going to make it to 30. And I went on this weight loss journey, which was crazy, and I thought I was going to last forever. And because of running, I actually gained 60 pounds, and the last 2 years has just kind of been, I wouldn't say a nightmare, but it's something where you don't envision yourself like kind of being back to where you once were. So it's a process, but like I've always said, I've really enjoyed the ups and downs, and like you get to really know about yourself that way. And I don't love living life on easy street. And like I found myself like really finding my purpose after gaining weight again, and it's just kind of been a journey that is unique, but other people also go through it as well. And it's kind of where I use my story to be like relatable and kind of help them through the same type of thing.
It's interesting that you say, and I want to pull on some of those threads there, but the thing that stood out the most to me from what you just said was because of running, you gained 60 pounds. How does that work?
So it's funny. When you go through marathon training, the stress of your body, the stress that it takes on your body is just absolutely insane. Like, I felt like I was running every single day, and especially this summer, like marathon training, where the heat, particularly for a guy that's still a bit heavier, when people see a runner, like I was running at 220 pounds at the time, and it just takes a toll on you, and it's not only physical but mental as well, where like you want to be so dialed in to get to your goals, but like you're also missing out on things within summer. And especially after the pandemic, this marathon build that I'm talking about, it was in 2022, and we had kind of missed the last 2 summers. So like I also kind of wanted to enjoy that too. And the stress of missing out on things, and then the stress of running, and then doing 2 back-to-back marathons, which I highly now recommend. It threw my thyroid out of whack, where it, like, I had 5 weeks in between marathons, and I gained like 20 pounds after the first one. And it's just like the toll of that just kind of spiraled out of control and kind of made me quit running. And then after that, I gained another quick 40, and it's just kind of been a process to find that love for running again. It's just, I don't know, it's just a weird type of thing, because it's the thing that made you lose the weight, but then it's also the thing that also helped you gain it all back, which is a weird spot to be in.
It's a weird relationship to have with.
Yeah. And you eat a ton more when you're doing marathon training, because you're doing, for me, I was doing 100 to 120 kilometer weeks, and your appetite is just through the roof. And it's funny, because the first marathon build I ever went through, I ran 500 kilometers that month and gained 10 pounds. And I'm like, oh, like I should have lost weight.
Yeah.
But like, just you're eating so much to sustain what you're doing. It's a weird thing, because in my mind, I'm like, I'm doing all the right things, but I'm not losing weight. It's weird.
Yeah. Let's go back a moment. You said you grew up over 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And you didn't know if you were going to live until you were 30.
Yeah.
What's the story there?
Well, just the way that my life was going. I was like 16, 17, 18. You just kept gaining weight, and to a point where like I was 360 pounds, and the way like I thought I would fit in after being bullied like growing up was to like kind of be the funny and stereotypical like funny fat guy. And that meant like going out drinking every single night, trying to do stupid things. And I thought if I kept doing that and then coming home and just kind of like masking the pain by eating, like I wouldn't say I was like gonna die at 30, but like I thought like I wouldn't make it there, because like my eating was so out of control, and I felt so unhealthy to a point where like I just had no idea like where it would take me to a point. I'm not sure if you...
No, as you were talking, it made me reflect on another conversation I had with the comedian Nima Naz, who talked about his relationship with food. How, after a set, he would basically buy Popeyes or KFC or something like that, go back to his room and just sort of binge eat in shame in a private room with nobody around him, so that nobody could judge him, despite the fact that he was judging himself the whole time.
Yeah.
So you gained all that weight. What maybe caused you to go, I need to do this reversal here, like I need to change this? Because then you said you went through a massive dip in weight.
Yeah, so back to that, I can really relate to Nima, because I would, especially after my bedroom moved downstairs in the house that I grew up in, there was a fridge down there. I would hide food in the fridge up in the top corner so nobody would see it, and then when everybody was gone, I would kind of eat that. And I would, like, sometimes it would be like 6 butter tarts, and like butter tarts have like 400 calories.
Yeah.
And so it was to a point where I knew I had to make a change. And it's funny, I always had this background on my phone which said day one or one day. And I would also change my handle on MSN where you could set your status to at the gym, but like everybody knew I wasn't at the gym. But when I went to college, I stayed in my hometown because I didn't want to have to go and make new friends, and I kind of just wanted to stay consistent. But the college gave me a free membership to the gym. And I knew I had to make a decision on getting in there and like cleaning up my life, because there was 2 events that actually happened. One, I was flying down to Florida with my parents, and the seatbelt didn't fit, and I was too embarrassed to ask for like a seatbelt extender, and I tried to hide it, and then the stewardess saw and kind of like forced me to kind of use that. So that was the first like inkling where I knew I had to make a change, even though those seats are pretty small. But the second was I was on a school trip, and we went to Canada's Wonderland, and I got on the ride and I got kicked off because they couldn't shut the gate around me. So I had to walk off in front of all my friends and just kind of hang out there and just be like, And nobody actually really came up and said anything to me at the time. And it wasn't until a few years later where a friend, actually my longest friend, he's like, had I known in that moment, I would have asked how you were doing. But like, again, I was just trying to play it off like I was all cool. Like I was okay with it, but deep down I was struggling with it. And I thought that was the most embarrassing moment of my life, but it kind of propelled me to where I needed to go looking back, which is funny.
So then you go on this weight loss journey. How much weight did you lose?
I lost 160 pounds at the grand total of things.
That's
a whole human right there.
Yeah. And how long?
It took around like, it was hard because I was going back and forth. Like the first little while I was yo-yoing, like losing 40 pounds, gaining it all back. But it was probably 5 years till I lost 100 pounds. And then I hit another plateau and I didn't lose any weight, and then lost another 60 after that. So it was a long journey, but it was worth it.
And then what ended up happening to trigger the weight gain again? Was it the running that just triggered it, or was there something already happening in the background that was sort of seeding or planting the seeds for this?
Like most recently?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was definitely a mixture of COVID taking its toll on myself, where like I was just kind of hanging out and like I would be drinking alone or just like ordering late night pizzas. And then I kind of got myself back on track with like when I knew the marathon was upcoming. But the stress of that was the trigger for all the weight gain, I assume. But it was also a mixture of falling back into binge eating after realizing that I had started to gain weight again.
So it sounds like it's a cycle where you start to gain some weight.
Yeah.
And you cope with that by eating more, which then reinforces the weight, and then it just becomes this negative feedback loop.
Very much. Yeah, and you don't realize that until like you actually like write it down on paper, kind of like see that cycle like through pictures.
It,
yeah.
So what happens now when you look at a photo of yourself when you were, actually before I ask that question, when you think of the version of you that had lost the 160 pounds, when you look at a photo of that Brendan, are you happy with what you see in that version? Was that a place where you were happy with your weight?
No. I've always said like, once I got down to my goal weight, which was 200, I was probably the least unhappy I ever was, because I didn't look like what I thought I would look like once I got there. I still had loose skin and stretch marks, and I thought I was going to look like somebody on on a magazine. And I didn't look like that. And there was a lot of like internal work that I had to do to kind of realize like I should be happy with these goals. And that was one thing I never did on my weight loss journey, was celebrate like the small victories, because I was always just focused on the next thing and trying to get there as fast as possible, where I never really celebrated myself and any of those accomplishments of how hard it is to lose weight. And so once I got there, I was not happy, and it's hard because like I should have been, but like, yeah, it's a weird thing. Yeah.
You finally reached the supposed goal, only to realize it's not what you wanted at all.
No, I thought I had to lose more weight after that.
That's not sustainable.
No, it's not.
So how do you navigate this constant back and forth, both mentally and physically, and I'm absolutely certain emotionally?
Yeah, it's a tough journey, especially now that I realize that I have ADHD, which also contributes to the cycle of binge eating. And
sorry, is that something that you developed recently, or you've learned that you've always had?
I think that it's always been there. I've never been able to. And my partner right now said that I couldn't say it until like I actually was diagnosed with it. And I got diagnosed earlier this year. And so now I've been taking like Vyvanse for that. And it's crazy. Like for me now, like I look at food and I don't need it or feel that impulse, especially like when I'm sad or I'm bored or just needing like that dopamine hit anymore. I don't feel the need to eat as much, and like I can push like a plate away, which I could never do. Like I would always fill my plate up, go get seconds, and now I can just kind of eat at a normal pace, which I had never, like, other than when I was on that first initial weight loss journey and I was dialed in, I've never been able to kind of do that. And even on like my marathon journeys, like I would get sad because of a bad run, and I would go home and try to eat away the pain of a bad run. And it was a bad cycle to be in. And it's like, it is very emotional. And I think for me, taking my mental health seriously actually kind of helped stop a couple cycles where like I knew I could get out of it. But like for growing up with it and like being there for like 30 years, it's really hard to undo those type of things. So as much as you work on yourself, sometimes it's kind of easier to fall back into the cycles.
You talked about when you lived at home and you had that fridge in the basement.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what was the relationship like with your family, siblings? I don't know if you have any siblings, but what was the relationship like with parents, but siblings? Do you have siblings?
No, I'm an only child.
So relationship with parents, girlfriends, sort of as you were navigating this weight journey, what were those relationships like? Did they encourage you, or did you find that some of them actually hindered you?
I would say my parents have always been very supportive, especially when I did, like, they never told me like I had to lose weight. They were never like hard on me like that. But when I did want to make the decision for myself, they supported that and gave me the freedom to go out and buy groceries and like kind of cook, because I was still 18. I was only working a part-time job. I couldn't really afford all like the proteins and
you're not buying a tenderloin for
no. So they were really supportive the whole way, and I think it was more so me like not telling them things, where like I would sometimes take that money and go buy the butter tarts or like so it's just, they were always great, and I've typically had very supportive partners, but I never had that until I lost 100 pounds. Like I never had my first girlfriend until I lost all the weight, and it was just, I was always told like, oh, you're the cute, funny guy. So like for me, I never tried, and I didn't think I got my first girlfriend at 24, which was odd. And because like I didn't know how to, like, people always have like these girlfriends growing up and they know how to like go through relationships, and I had no idea. But my first relationship was 5 years. So it was supportive, but it didn't end well, which is all right. But yeah, she was actually the one that pushed me to get into running. And it was because she was training for a half marathon. I'm like, oh, well, if she can, I can. And I got out there with her, and I couldn't run 100 meters, but she kept pushing me, and to a point where I became the runner and she hated running, which is so funny. And so that relationship didn't end the best, but like other partners have been supportive in the most part, especially my current girlfriend, Juliana. She's quite amazing and very supportive, especially because she's seen me now at my lowest and then now at my current biggest. And she's kind of helped me like navigate that journey. But I had a few partners in between, and they weren't the best, I don't think. But you gotta kind of go through those to kind of learn.
Sure.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable in your skin right now?
Am I? There's days I am, and there's days that I'm not.
What's the difference in those days?
That's a good question. I'm not really too sure. It's just sometimes I wake up in the mirror and be like, wow, you look good today. And then other days you just feel like the world's beating you down. But I'm starting to really enjoy being back, especially now where I'm finding myself trying new clothing. Like I would never wear like a knit shirt.
It's a very nice shirt.
It was only, I bought like 10 things from Abercrombie. This was the only thing in the box that fit. I'm like, everything else was too big. I'm like, that's a good sign, I guess. But, but it's hard because I had finally kind of just got comfortable being smaller and kind of finding my identity there and like finding my clothing style. And then you gain weight and then you feel like you got nothing in your closet. And I remember back to when I was a kid growing up shopping, like you'd go into a store and they'd be like, oh, all your bigger sizes are online. And I didn't have a credit card to order online. So like, I just always have to be relegated to like some, I wouldn't say terrible clothes, but they weren't the best fashion, which now, at least for larger bodies, there's better clothing options. So I am finding my way. I wouldn't say at the start of this year I was comfortable in my skin, but throughout this year and like kind of going through the motions, I've kind of developed that resiliency again to actually like who I am and be in the moment and just realize that not every season's going to be the best, but like you can be the best in that season. So
if I was a fly on the wall, when you were at your heaviest and struggling in your relationship to food, your self-esteem, your confidence, your mental health, all of those things, what would I have seen?
You would have seen a guy that bottled up everything, called himself names, started to believe what people called him, and just you would if you put me now and him beside each other, you wouldn't like recognize the difference, or sorry, you would see a huge difference because he was not motivated to even try anything to better himself. He was just on a path of destruction and he didn't care. He just wanted to be accepted. Whereas now I realize I have to be accepting of myself before others can accept me.
What was the worst thing you said to yourself?
There's like a lot of explicit names where, I mean, the general one would be like, are we able to swear on here? Yeah. It would just be like, you fat fuck, or like, you're so fucking fat, like, you're a lazy piece of shit. And like, you would just go through that and just beat yourself down for no apparent reason, but just because you believe what you heard about yourself, you would just kind of repeat that.
What do you say to yourself now?
You beautiful son of a gun. No. No, there's...
With a stash like that and a shirt like that, absolutely.
No, now I just kind of, I look at myself in the mirror and just kind of like, I write a lot of affirmations and I put them onto the mirror some days to kind of help you remember who you are and like what you're going through. And so now I just kind of say to myself, like, it's only temporary, like, not like it'll pass. Like, I wouldn't say it'll pass, but like, you'll get through this hard spot. Like, you can keep going. Like, you know, you've done it. You can do it again and just kind of keep trucking forward. So just take it step by step and day by day.
Your relationship with Juliana,
yeah,
is that her name is? How has that supported your ability to stay where you're at in the sense of grounded, focused, positive? I ask that question because it's incredible to me still how impactful the right partner can be.
Dude.
When you're trying to unlock a version of yourself that's just waiting to break free.
Yeah. It's impacted me immensely, like having her by my side. I think a lot of people would run if you like gain weight. Like I see that a lot online, like, oh, my partner left me because I gained weight, and she's been there like every step of the way. She picks me up like if I'm having a bad day, and it goes vice versa because she also deals with her mental health. And we last year had a scare. I wouldn't say a scare would be the right word, but she had to take 2 months off work where we had to put her first because herself, she has been like, her whole life she had been like a type A, where her parents divorced when she was young, and she's always had to be like perfect for both sides wherever she had to go. And it kind of came to a point where like even at work that has followed her, and she just kind of burnt out. And I think having that partner where it goes both ways, they always say a relationship should be 50-50, but sometimes it's going to be 80-20 and vice versa. And knowing when to push and pull back from both sides has been pretty amazing. And I don't think I would be turning the corner as quickly as I did without her. Even though it has been like a year of like trying to find myself, but like I think she has impacted me in a sense of knowing mentally and physically that everything's going to be okay. And I think the same for her. And we've kind of like bonded to a point where we've got into like running together, which is actually how we met. She slid into my DMs asking me for running tips, and but it took her a while to actually want to run, which is funny. But running
now tips.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, now we've kind of used both of our journeys to kind of propel ourselves for the better. And like a couple weeks ago, we ran to raise money for women's mental health, and it's just
very nice.
Yeah, so it's kind of neat that we both have been on, I wouldn't say similar journeys, but journeys that our mental health like kind of brought us closer together, and kind of were able to build together and like foster our relationship.
Are you, what's the question I want to ask here? Is your current mental state in relation to your weight, I guess what I'm trying to say here is, if you had some traumatic trigger happen right now, are you concerned that you're going to fall right back into bad habits?
Right now, no. You asked me that at the start of the year, yeah. But right now, no. I've kind of come to a point where like I do have better avenues of like helping myself right now, especially like with my ADHD assessment and getting that. The team that I went through also has like therapy, which was great for me because I switched therapists because I ran out of when I quit my job a couple of years ago, I didn't have any more benefits. So I kind of put that on the back burner. And this year, like, I've got benefits back, and through that, like, I've been able to kind of chat and like find different ways to help myself. Because before, like, I would journal, and journaling was okay. Like, it helped me definitely a lot. Therapy was great, but like, it's gonna change. I think, like, the avenues that you like, I think sometimes they're gonna change, and so I'll go through phases of journaling, and now it's kind of my way of getting things out again. And especially because it's so easy and accessible now. Like, we went a couple weeks ago with Apple to Vancouver, and they were showing us like how easy it is with our phones to be able to kind of journal, like, because they have a new journaling app, and there's a stigma to guys like carrying around a journal around,
pocketbook and a pencil.
Yeah, so it's nice now that you can kind of get away, like, not that I'm embarrassed to carry one around, but like when I'm traveling, like, just to have your phone and be able to type that out is amazing. And like, even like the assessments that they have on there, which I don't think a lot of people know about, like, you can check in every single day and like do mental health assessments, and I didn't know that that was possible on there. And so it's amazing to see like what technology can do. But like, I think first and foremost, like, just talking has been the biggest thing, and it took me a while to find that. And that was through therapy that I was able to chat and just kind of get things off my chest. And I think I was holding things in after gaining weight for a little while, and I think that was kind of limiting who I was and trying to figure out who I was going to be now. And so I think now that I have these ways, like, it's been good. So I don't think I would fall back quickly, but you never know.
Scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah.
How happy are you with your current weight?
I would say a 7.
Okay.
I mean, I think now that I'm comfortable, like, more so in my skin, that I'm fine, because I don't think my weight really defines me. I mean, people have saw me at a bigger weight, a smaller weight, now a bigger weight again, and I've realized, like, the scale, that number on the scale, like, isn't as important as I thought it would be, because I figured out when I got down to 200 pounds, like, nobody really cared. Like, yeah, they were like, congrats on getting there, but like, I was the only one that really cared about my weight. And it's kind of funny, because now, like, the same box that I bought of clothing, I bought bigger pants than I normally would, and I bought them in a size bigger because, like, nobody knows what size of pant you're actually wearing. So why are we, like, stuffing ourselves into these smaller pants and being uncomfortable? So now I kind of went up a bigger size, and just sitting here, I feel comfortable in them. Whereas before, like, I was still trying to force myself into being that smaller guy, and I'm not him right now. So I'm at a point where I'm happy. If I lose weight, that's great. If I don't, I'll be okay.
Is there advice you could share with anyone listening, watching, who is currently struggling with their weight, in particular struggling with their relationship with their weight?
Yeah.
It's a hard thing, like, as you're talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're simplifying it, because it definitely sounds like you went through the process. You worked through it. It wasn't an overnight thing.
No.
But it's a hard thing to do.
It is.
You know, like, to accept your body as it is. Like, body insecurity just seems to be on the rise. I mean, I don't have any data for this, but it just seems like anyone you talk to, if you really talk to them, they could tell you, like, I'm unhappy with this, and this.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that has, like, any correlation to do with, like, social media and everybody
absolutely
comparing themselves, but, like,
everyone looks great on social media,
right? Yeah.
Right? Like, I've never seen abs that look like that, and I'm like, I could never get those abs even when I was at my best shape. I'm
right?
Like,
yeah. I know it's crazy what some lighting and some contouring can do, or even
sharpening.
Yeah, a little Photoshop.
Yeah,
I've never figured out how to use that, and I think it would be kind of hard to Photoshop everything for me. But I think for me the biggest thing was when I hit a plateau for 2 years after losing 100 pounds. I started to get really obsessed with it and my weight and like trying to become a smaller, and I eventually burnt myself out. And I realized then that it's got to be a sustainable process and like something that you can sustain. And it's not even every day. Like people are like, I'll go 7 days a week and then burn out, and then they don't go for another 3 weeks. Whereas like somebody where I wish I'd learned this before, like you start with like 3 days and you go like Monday, Wednesday, Saturday or something like that. You're not hurting when you go back on the Monday again. Like you're just kind of working through the motions, and consistency is key. And I mean, I think that's for anything in life. Like I think that portion of my life where I was working out so hard and like trying to become that smaller person, I realized like I was not happy where I was at, but I told myself I'm in a much better spot than I was, let's say 3 years ago. And I've created a new lifestyle where like I actually enjoy coming to the gym, and it's not actually a punishment. It's just something that I actually like now. And I think it took me a while to realize that like you got to be able to enjoy these things, and you got to kind of do it with like a little bit of passion and have fun, and not just like punish yourself for overeating on like a Tuesday night or like a weekend. You just got to go in there, be consistent, and just kind of be strong and steady with it, rather than being just like all in right away and just burning out.
And it sounds obvious when you think about it, but for a lot of people, it seems like the correlation between your diet, what you eat and put into your body, it doesn't matter how often you work out, how many calories you're burning, if what you're consuming, to your story earlier, if you're consuming 4 or 5 butter tarts and you worked out all week, like you're undoing what you just did.
Yeah. And like you can still enjoy yourself on these like things. Like everything in moderation is totally fine. That's
what nutritionists will tell you.
Yeah.
Dietitians will say the same thing. You can enjoy the occasional X. Insert whatever you fancy in there. It's if you have too much of it that it becomes a problem.
Oh, totally. And that was my problem. I loved lots of it. Like I didn't know what calories were growing up. Like I mean, I hate that everybody, I feel like in my generation and our generation, went through like the MyFitnessPal type of thing, where I know I started to look at food and all I thought was calories. Like, so I would work out like crazy because I'm like, oh, I just ate a butter tart. That's 400 calories. That's 30 minutes of running. There we go. Yep. But
then you quickly realize that there's no way you can catch up to.
No, you can't outrun a bad diet.
No.
And I think a lot of people train harder than they should. I mean, it's great to work out hard, especially if you have goals. But like the average general person, like when they have that bad day and they go in there and they punish themselves, they're in there for 2 hours. But in reality, like we're still burning calories throughout the day.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people don't see that. I think they only see like what they see on their watch and like how much they burned in that workout. That's all that they can consume that day. And it's kind of hard because you see a lot of people like eating like 1,200 calories a day. And I've been there. Like I thought I was going to shrink myself by just eating that much, but like that also leads to burnout. Like you can't sustain that. And
you need sustenance.
Yeah.
Like you can't, to your point, you can't outrun a bad diet.
Yeah.
And the food you are consuming is just as important.
Yeah, it is.
Like I had a conversation with someone, with a nutritionist on the podcast about intermittent fasting in particular, and how there are people out there who will swear by IF. I mean, I do it, and I love it.
Yeah.
But there are people who, in their feeding window, will basically consume as much as they can, and it's usually garbage.
Yeah.
And then be like, oh, but I'm on IF. Why is this not working for me? Like, you're still consuming bad food, right?
Yeah.
Highly processed crap and sugars and all that stuff, and it's only going to wreck your system ultimately.
Oh, totally. And I'm no nutritionist, but like all those you look at, all those diets, like if you do keto, IF, anything like that, I think at the end of the day, it still comes down to like calories in, calories out. But I mean, I'm not an expert, but
I mean, you don't have to be an expert to have lived experience and say like, this was my experience. I mean, I did, at my lowest, I was on the keto diet.
Oh, really?
And I had lost something like 60 pounds.
That's huge.
Sorry, 60? No, 40. Forgive me. 40 pounds in 6 months.
That's incredible.
But not sustainable.
No.
Like, just completely not sustainable.
Yeah.
I looked great. I felt great temporarily.
Yeah.
And then I would realize that I was basically, to some degree, almost starving myself.
Yeah.
Because I would have this, like, piece of salmon and some broccoli, and obviously on keto, you're not having rice or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then I'd just be sitting there miserable. And I'm like, so my relationship with food has always been complicated because I love to eat and I love to snack. But I still feel guilty at times if I order a pizza and I get a large and I scarf the whole thing down because I just love pizza, right? Like if I'm on my, what do they call that? It's like your last meal if you're in
death row.
Yeah, something
whatever,
like that. It would be pizza.
Was it?
Like that?
Or
that's
would
just, it's just my thing.
I was just gonna ask you that question.
Yeah, like it would have to be a pizza, a big slice, a big pie.
Yeah.
But I feel like crap afterwards because I'm like, man, I probably shouldn't have eaten all that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so it's this constant back and forth of should I have eaten that? Could I have eaten that? All the workouts I've done up to this point, are they for waste? And I think that also speaks to just a lack of understanding and education overall around the calories in, calories out. We look to social media for a lot of the, experts and gurus on what you should eat and shouldn't eat and all those things.
And there's so many different opinions out there.
And most of them are just stealing from each other. And I guarantee you most of it is probably crap as well. Like if it's not someone who's a trained expert in something, I would steer clear of all of that people. I'm curious in terms of the running piece, because you talked about running marathons and all of those things. What kind of physical toll because running in general can be stressful on your joints. Yeah. When you're adding weight to that, you can amplify that stress. Yeah. Have you been able to balance recovery and sort of maintaining good overall physical health as you're on this journey?
I'll be the first to admit I should probably stretch a lot more than I do.
You and me both.
Yeah. It's hard because there's only so much time of the day, and if I want to get a proper warm up in and then a proper cool down, it adds another 45 minutes. And especially if I want to go run that day and then maybe also do a little workout, that's almost 4 hours sometimes, especially if you add in the driving to the gym. And I know I kind of hate the saying everybody has the same 24 hours in the day, because it is different for everybody, especially what you're doing. And I know I definitely have a lot more creative freedom now, doing what I do. But for me, traveling up and back from Toronto, that takes 3-4 hours a day. So if you add those two things together, that's 8 hours, and then you got to get 8 hours of sleep, and it's just it adds up really quickly. And especially with a young puppy and my girlfriend who also wants her time with me, it becomes a lot. But I think now I realize, especially after the last few weeks where I've gotten really more in depth with running, that I do need to take that time, because it won't be sustainable again. I wake up some mornings now and I'm like, my calves hurt so bad. And I think that also has to do with like proper footwear, which will help, and like not trying to push myself as hard right now as I try to get into it. Like I can't make back all my speed overnight. But
you gotta be patient with yourself.
Yeah. So
is the running community open, supportive? I'm not sure what the right word is here.
Oh,
like, I know that sports and the athletic community sometimes, not always, but sometimes can be a bit judgmental in some ways, and it could be discouraging for people who are either new to it or who are body conscious of themselves, sort of walking in. And to your point earlier, like, you look around, you see all these really fit runners, and you're just like, where do I fit in here?
Yeah. Especially as that bigger guy. After I ran my first half marathon, I trained all by myself because I didn't want to go to a run club. After that, and I joined the run club, I saw like actually how supportive it was and like the community that they had built there. And there's going to be judgmental people everywhere you go. There's going to be bad apples in every single group. But like once I got in there, I realized everybody has the same goal. It's just to become a better version of themselves. And like we all have different backgrounds, but we all have that same common goal to like help each other strive to get to where you want to be. And just like support was like tenfold more than I thought it was actually going to be in there. And I thought, yeah, because I thought like being a bigger body, like you always see just small runners. And now I think with the rise of running, especially through TikTok,
it's like running has become
crazy.
Sexy or something.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I'm like,
everyone's in a run club.
Yeah, I'm like, why wasn't this boom when I was posting about all my running? Because I found that like my running content on TikTok especially is like pushed down a lot, whereas like talking about something else is like amplified, which is so funny because my name on there is like Brie Carpy Runs. So it's hard. But no, with the boom of that and like seeing so many people like get into it, I have a couple of friends that I've made online, both from like different areas. One's from the East Coast, one's from Boston. And Herm, he's 260 pounds. He'll like eat donuts on the run, and it's hilarious to see. And then, and I think Emma, she's from the East Coast, and she like calls herself everybody's favorite shitty runner. And like, it's cool to see like people now being able to believe that they belong in this community, because people do like open you up with open arms and like support you on that journey. And it's kind of cool to see like people coming together online to support that, and then also in person, because even the run clubs here, I've seen videos, like they're huge now, and I think a lot of people are trying to find a girlfriend or boyfriend or
they're
whatever.
Going to a run club. It's a new dating scene.
So it's funny.
Well, you mentioned your TikTok.
Yeah.
You have, if I remember correctly, over 250,000 followers on TikTok.
Yeah.
Which is huge, by the way. Congrats on that. It obviously speaks to this idea that people are resonating with this journey of yours.
Yeah.
That there are people out there who are struggling with their bodies, with the way they look at, themselves in the mirror, the relationship to their weight, the relationship to food. Is there something that you can say to them in their own journey that perhaps worked for you? Like, what's something you know today that you didn't know when you first started on this journey?
I think the one thing that's helped me is like this motto that I've had, where it's like, you don't know unless you don't try. And that got me into the gym. That got me into running, because like I won my first half marathon entry fee off the radio. And I was like, wow, is this a death wish? And then I thought back on it, I'm like, well, I don't know unless I don't try. And even if it's a good or bad experience, you're going to come out with some knowledge that you can use to your advantage, especially if you do continue on, or something like you can apply it to something else. And I think that's the one thing, is like, you got to try, because you don't know where that will lead you to. especially like for me, like starting running, like I didn't know that would lead me to becoming a run coach or like becoming like people look to me for running advice, which is so funny because some of the people that asked me for running advice were the people that made fun of me in high school. But
full circle moment.
Yeah, and I think the other portion of that is just like whatever you do, just like be yourself. And I did find things about myself on those journeys, but like you just have to be yourself throughout and just kind of, I wouldn't say like authenticity is key, like I think, but I wouldn't say it's everything. I think just being yourself and showing like the ups and downs of your journey, especially if you are going to post like your journey on TikTok, people will resonate to that and kind of cling on to that. And it's kind of cool because social media can be a highlight reel, that's for sure.
Yep.
And
it's what we want people to see.
Yeah.
It's the best parts of the movie with the boring parts cut out.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Exactly.
Brendan, I got to ask you one more question here.
Yep.
And I really want you to work with me here to visualize something.
Okay.
You're walking into a room and young Brendan is sitting there.
Yep.
The same Brendan that was embarrassed for not fitting into that ride on the roller coaster. What do you say to him?
I would say to him, and as cliche as it is, never give up. Like I said, I didn't think I was going to make it to 30, and that was me giving up on life. And I think if I had gone out and even tried to lose weight and then gave up, I think I would have been happy knowing that I tried, but like giving up that easy wouldn't have been like the best thing, because like nothing in life really comes easy, and like keeping pushing even though like you are struggling is kind of something that kept me going and just kind of fueling the fire. So I would say just tell them never give up, and you just never know what's on the other side of that, so just to keep going.
Amazing. Brendan, thank you so much for your time, brother.
Thank you so much.
This
Appreciate
was awesome.
It. Yeah, I loved it.
Good luck on your journey. It's inspiring to see someone. It's interesting, I should say, because for a lot of us, when we're talking about mental health, mental illnesses, those kinds of things, it's stuff that you don't typically see, right? Because it's all happening behind the scenes. You're out here talking about how, yes, there's a mental health component to it, but there's also a very forward-facing physical element to it, that you're like, this is who I am, and this is the journey that I'm on, and I'm working through it, and being comfortable in your own skin is such a hard thing to do.
It is.
And it's encouraging to see that, because I really do believe that there are people out there who are struggling today with that very thing and could use just a little bit of an encouragement, a little nudge in the right direction to go, like, it's okay.
For sure.
You'll figure it out. Yeah. You'll get through it. You just gotta find what gets you going.
That's kind of why I've always said whatever I share online, like whether it helps one person or 100, and even if they don't tell you, it's worth it to share, because you just never know what anybody's really going through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brendan, thank you so much.
Thanks, pal.
Really appreciate this. Thank you so much, everyone.